yframework introduction. In this lesson we won't code anything. I will just explain to you the concepts of my framework. It wasn't easy to implement in AppGameKit, but I managed to do it without object-oriented programming and without help from the community, sadly. Anyway, so my framework concepts are simple. You have worlds and you have entities. A world is a container class or object that holds inside of it entities. You can have many worlds, but only one world can be active at a time, like updated by the game loop. So the game loop calls the current world's update, and the current world updates each entity, each active entity inside of it. You can look at worlds as screens and use them as screens, levels, it depends on your preference. I use them as screens. And the entities are basically game actors, like it can be a player, it can be a bullet, it can be a GUI, it can be anything, like it can be a button, a bullet, a weapon, an enemy, a player, I don't know, the background. You get what an entity is. So, yeah. You have the game main loop that updates the current world. You can also change between worlds, like so you can change between screens. And when you change a world, all the current world's entities become hidden and inactive, and the world you want to change to, entities become more active, become active and gets updated by the world's update method, which in turn gets updated by the game loop. You know what? I'll show you some code how it is. And let's see, where is Y-engine? That's it. So for now it's just for 2D. So let's see. Yeah, that's the current world. It holds a world type. I'll show you in a moment what it is. That's the current world's index. I also made a global array of worlds, so you can access them from anywhere. Let's see, so that's an entity. It has its ID, I think it's the sprite ID. Its SRC, I think it's the ID of its image or sprite. RIndex is short for array index. It's its position in the world, in the world array. Let's go to world, so that's world. It has a name, it also has an array index, and it has Y entities, which is an entity array. So the entity RIndex refers to the index inside this array, and this RIndex refers to the index of the world in worlds array. I think it's too small for you. Yeah, RIndex. And that's the world. It's very simple. You only need the name of the world and the entities it holds. All the rest are oh yeah, that's the engine update. You need to include it in your game loop. It updates the timers, the world, and your costume update. So yeah, all the other stuff is for manipulating worlds and entities, so like creating a new world, change world, etc, etc. Add an entity to a world, recycle an entity. We don't remove entities, we recycle them, like it turns into inactive and then gets recycled. Yeah, basically remove an entity, which deletes its sprite. That's the world's update. It updates the current world. See, current world index. So yeah, ignore that. You really don't need to understand all of that. I just wrote it. It's my logic. Like after you use it a couple of times, you can come here and you'll kind of understand how everything works. But all you need to know is how to use an entity and a world. I won't show you in this tutorial, but yeah, that's an entity. Let's see what else it has. Entities also has types. like or a group, like player. Like all player objects will have a type of player. All bullets will have a type of bullet. And you can get all bullets by type, by their type. Like get all entities with the type of bullet. Get all, and make them move by half speed. Like if it's bullet time. Yeah, it's very effective framework. Very flexible. Or get all the enemy types. The enemy entities. The entities that have the type of enemy. Pose is another type. It's basically hold X, Y, Z. The world's coordinates. So if you want to get the entities X and Y, you call pose. Also has a speed. You know, the entity is velocity, speed, and Y active. If it's not active, it won't update. Also, if you quote unquote remove it, it's not active anymore until you recycle it. Alpha is the opacity. Rotation is the entity's angle. The entity, let me show you, it's connected with a sprite. So basically I use the AppGameKit's framework and I put on it my own framework. You see, when you create a new entity, you give it the X, Y and speed and the source ID of the image, and it creates the entity and also adds to the entity sprite count. You don't need to worry about even giving the sprite an ID. You see, new entity ID and the source ID. Let's see. So yeah, basically an entity is connected, like all of the functions. You see, even this move by, it manipulates a sprite. So basically think of an entity as a sprite that has data attached to it. Like usually when you program in AppGameKit, you have sprites and you can access them with IDs and manipulate them with their ID, like set sprite position by its ID, exactly like I did here. Like that's the new sprite ID and its position X and position Y. But this sprite, like it's up to you how you handle your sprites. Like in our Click in Stars game, we put them in an array. It's nice, but it's not organized enough for me. Like the sprite itself is not related to data. What my entities do is, it's like, think of it as a sprite that is connected to data with that can be used with all this functionality. Let's see what else. Frame is the entity sprite frame. In AppGameKit, as we've seen in the pick and sticks, you can have you can use a sprite map easily. Ints, strings and floats are the entity's values. Like if you want to give the entity HP, sadly we don't have associative arrays, so you'll have to remember the index of the HP. Let's say y_ints at position 0 is the entity's HP. I know it's annoying, but I wish you could inherit types, or I don't know, make another type and put an entity inside of it, but then it creates more complexities. So to simplify it, I just did, like, if you want to add the data to entity, you add it to either to its ints, strings or floats. Again, I wish there was a better way to do this. If anyone knows of a better way, please tell me. I'll be sure to fix it and make it better, but that's the simplest way I could have done it. Like if you have an entity that has a ton of data, it will have to be put on these arrays. Yeah, that's one way to store data. Like the only thing you can do, like let's say you have an entity that needs an int array. You'll have to be very creative about it, like associate the entity with the array, or each entity with an int array. Yeah, it's very problematic, but for most entities, like if you need it to have HP or I don't know, a name or rotation values, etc., etc. You can use these three. I also created a button. The YBTN is AppGameKit's button. You can also use it. Let's see where is it? Where is it? Here. You can also use the same, almost the same methods that entity has with YButton, like for creating it, recycling it, getting by type. Yeah. Buttons, I don't think are, no, they are associated with worlds. How nice. So the button do have a world. Let's see, a world is a string, so basically you can get all buttons that are related to a certain world, like let's say world. Basically, if you have a menu world and you want get all the buttons that are associated to menu world, you can loop the buttons array and check if the world value is equals to menu, which is nice. Oh, and it has a on-click function. Nice. Yeah. So again, you won't need to remember all of that or understand all of that at all. All you'll need to understand is the concept of worlds and worlds and entities. I will create a few simple games. I will even recreate our pick and sticks game with my framework, so you understand how it works. And yeah, I think it's a better way to create games when you have this sort of structure, when you have all of your actors, entities connected to a scene, world, and have everything organized. And yeah, that's kind of it. If you have any questions, you can contact me either here via messages or wherever I post this. And that's it for this lesson.